This is in reply to a question that was asked on Instagram. If you would like me to answer your question on Instagram, please use the hashtag Richard Grannon Q&A on one of my posts that you have reposted on your profile, and then Comrade Max, our wonderful Russian editor, will go through and select the best questions, and then he will command me to fulfill my socialist duty and answer your question. This one is about forgiveness. How can I forgive after decades of cruelty? Is the question. So I set my mind to this, and I made a mistake. I started to answer the question, how do we forgive? And then I took a walk, thought about it, came back, and I was like, maybe we shouldn't forgive. So I looked up what forgiveness means. For probably means completely, and give obviously means to give or receive, and also to give up, to give away. Apparently, the root is found in Vulgar Latin perdonare, as in pardon. So forgive, perdonare, also to give, forgive, but not for. It's an old way of understanding for, which is complete. Complete giveness. Complete giving up. What do you completely give up when you forgive after being treated with cruelty? So I wanted to know. So I looked it up. And you give up if you check out the dictionaries, multiple definitions, and multiple sites on etymology, you give up the desire or the ability to take revenge, and you give up anger. And I thought to myself, I wonder if that's necessary, and I wonder if it's useful. So I wanted to look up another approach, and the one that I looked up was a different word, which is to absolve. So if you have more of a traditional Christian, particularly Catholic background, you'll be familiar with the word absolve, sorry. It comes from the Proto-Indo-European root meaning to loosen, divide, or cut apart. So to absolve yourself. So what we'd be looking for is not the forgiveness of others necessarily, because this becomes very triggering for people for reasons I'll mention in a moment, but that we seek to absolve ourselves, that we let go of the desire to seek vengeance, and we let go of the anger. I'll explain how and why in a moment. It has the meaning also of releasing, of setting free, and to acquit, to set free from consequences or penalties of actions. Apparently it comes from the Old French azoldre, to move away from or to loosen after the Proto-Indo-European, to cut. So you're tied to something, and then when you absolve, you cut yourself from being tied to it. So I thought, forgiveness to me has always implied a sort of permission that what occurred was okay, or that the person is no longer culpable. And I found a Japanese proverb about that. And it said, forgiving the unrepentant is like drawing pictures in water. I found that interesting. I recently was faced with a situation where somebody who'd done something very, very malicious to me a couple of years ago, they'd actually tried to put me out of business. And I wondered about the possibility of that person offering me an apology. It seemed like they were gearing up to offer me an apology. And I was like, under what conditions would you accept her apology? And I thought about it over a couple of weeks. And I thought, really, for that apology to work for me, I would need her to fully admit what she had done and her motivations for doing so. And I know that I would never get that. She will never admit what she did and why she did it. But I need the whole story. this is an important theme of what I'm going to be talking about today. In order for me to allow that to pass, to absolve myself, to forgive, meaning to give up the possibility of any feelings of anger or a desire for vengeance, I would need the whole story to be kind of confessed to. I thought this many years ago about my relationship with my father, who I've not spoken to in some 15 years. What would it take to accept an apology from him? I would need him to tell me why I stopped speaking to him and to apologize for it. And I'd need him to tell me with precision exactly what he did wrong with no prompting from me. And if he failed to do it, I wouldn't accept the apology. And I know that he would never be able to do that. And so I could never accept the apology. So people have asked me in that situation, well, how did you sort of get past it? Do you feel like you've forgiven him? And I do actually feel as though I'm the same as a person who went through a process of forgiveness. But I always said I've forgiven selfishly. I've forgiven very, very selfishly. And actually, I don't want to call it forgiveness. I want to use this term self-absolution. I didn't make it about him and what he did. I made it about what I was being asked to carry. And I've seen people die younger than they should. I've seen people die of cancer. And I know that some people consider this mumbo jumbo, but I have a strong suspicion that the New Agers are right when they say that cancer is directly correlated with anger and particularly resentment. And I was like, I don't want to make myself sick with this person's actions. Jeff Thompson is a famous self-defense instructor and author and director of films in the UK. And he said about his experiences of sexual abuse as a child that it left him feeling as though he was haunted and possessed by the people who had abused him. And he didn't want to be possessed anymore. So he spoke about forgiveness. Where am I leading to with this? I think there are things that I do quite naturally that other people don't. This whole issue of dealing with the emotional flashbacks and the emotional literacy, I'm speaking to intelligent people. I'm speaking to people who have their lives together. I'm speaking to people who are not idiots. And getting people to actually do the emotional flashback work and getting people to actually do the emotional literacy work is a major challenge. It's a major, major challenge. I thought it was because I hadn't laid it out evenly and simply enough. Well, you can't get much more even and much more simple than the Fortress Mental Health Protection System on YouTube. I know that people are consuming that, and I know that the majority of people are just not doing it because you have to do it on your own. And it's a problem. I still haven't cracked it. I never had a problem with doing it. I think now that whilst I identify with a lot of people with codependency and CPTSD, I may be significantly different to most people with codependency and CPTSD. When I say significantly, I'm using it the way they would in psychology or statistics. I'm not, because when you normally say significantly, you go, oh, I'm massively different. I'm not saying I'm massively different. I'm saying there could be small differences in my traits and behaviors, some of which may put me somewhere on the autism spectrum because I am quite particular and I am quite obsessive compulsive, that have given me more resilience, and particularly they've given me more what is called, well, we use the term agency, but in psychology it's called executive function. And this is what I think people are lacking, and I'm not sure how to approach the topic of helping people deal with this. You know that inner voice that you have? When my inner voice tells me to do something, I go ahead and I do it. I go ahead and I actually have quite strong internal boundaries. Even at my sickest, I think I still had quite a strong executive function, even when I was very, very, not very well at all. And this has helped me. It means that I have a certain advantage. So I realized very early on, and I just accepted it. I'm kind of a rebel in some ways, but I'm actually quite obedient in others. So like if somebody tells me to do something and I've established that they know more than me, I think this goes back to the private school thing and also martial arts. You just do what your sensei tells you to do. The idea that you wouldn't do it is a bit wacky. So I was told when it comes to processing trauma that grief was really necessary. And I noticed that the way psychologists spoke about grief was as though it was a skill or a muscle, and that it was something that you would have to lean into in order to get done. A skill or a muscle or something you have to lean into in order to get done. And I'm of the opinion that you can only grieve if you're grieving the whole story in its fullness. You have to grieve the whole story in its fullness. In order to organically and safely grieve, you must have fairly strong emotional literacy muscles. They must be there and they must be strong. That means in order for this to be a possibility, you actually need to have already practiced your emotional literacy on a not so traumatic subject as childhood trauma or whatever else, just on daily life. So the metaphor would be you go in the gym and punch the pads so that when you have to actually go and fight a real person, you're prepared. But your preparation for fighting a real person is never a full-on fight. It's never a full-on fight. And, be like, well, in the UFC, they must fight with each other before they go and do a fight. Well, you can't. We've never figured that one out because all that happens is you smash up your training partners. And fighters who break their training partners get a reputation. and it has happened. Like injuries will happen in it's called hard sparring. But it's not a fight. You're not fighting to win. You're fighting to develop. You're fighting to develop skills and attributes. So your sparring is the emotional literacy. When you actually need to go ahead, emotional literacy about things that are not that consequential, when you actually need to deal with the real story, then you're ready. Then you're ready to grieve. Once you're ready to grieve, you'll be ready to move on. But you must grieve the whole story. When people tell me they're stuck and they can't move on, I'm like, you've not grieved yet. I did this aggressively. I did it aggressively because I didn't want it weighing on me anymore. I didn't want to carry it. I know what it's like. I really do. Because I think people look at me and they go, this guy, he never had it as bad as I did. He never really had it. He's never really had anything. If it's that easy for him, he can't have been through what I've been through. And I would just say, no, with all due love and respect, I have a work ethic and a lot of you don't. You're not prepared to grind. You're not prepared to get up and just fucking do it and do it and do it and do it again. I am. I'm wondering now if this is actually more like I say, maybe like an autistic sort of response. I'll just do it. I'll just go ahead and get on with it. So having aggressively grieved for the whole story, then you're ready to go through a process of self-absolution where you say, well, I'm not going to hold on to this anymore. I'm not carrying the emotional weight of this anymore. And just release it. Another question that you should ask yourself philosophically is like, if you're angry, are you going to do anything about it? Do you need to take vengeance? Do you need to actually take this person? Don't hurt anybody or do anything unlawful. I'm not suggesting that. But do you need to find a lawful way of, maybe you take the person to court. Maybe you write them a strongly worded letter letting them know exactly how you feel. Maybe you need to let the people around them know what they've done. Are you going to do that? So sometimes when we get stuck in a cycle of sort of like, I'm thinking about this, but I'm not actually moving on, it's because you're sort of diddling yourself. You have a fantasy of taking action. You begin to grieve. You go, I don't want to feel that way. So you run away from the grieving. So you go back into your vengeance fantasy because it makes you feel good. It's completely masturbatory. If you're going to do something, get the fuck on with it, because literally decades will go past where you're just stuck with this. If there's nothing you can do, you just say, there's nothing I can do. Well, I'm pissed off about that. Go ahead and grieve for that as well then, kid. You have that option. You have that option. If there's nothing you can do about it and you feel sad about that, deal with the fact that you feel sad about that. It's not that you've been wounded, it's that the wound won't heal. So how do we get to a place of healing? We're going to have to accept the wounding. I don't want to accept the wounding. It makes me feel weak. Well, I ain't got anything else in my box of tricks for you, kids. You just have to. Yeah, grieving sucks. Grieving is not anybody's idea of a fun day out. You may find that you get very, very sad, and you may find that you get even more angry. But it's a process. And if you do the emotional literacy work and you're tuning into how you feel and you're in communication with those emotions every day and you're honoring the messages of the communication, you can grow and you can heal and you can grow up and you can move past this stuff. If you're not going to take action, just say, I'm not going to take any action. I'm not going to do a damn thing about this. And fine, don't do a damn thing about it. Just move on and stop pretending that, one day I'm going to fucking... Nah, you're probably not. You didn't do it yet. You're probably not going to do it. If you need to do it, go ahead and do it. If you're not going to do it, shut the fuck up about it. You're like some little wannabe gangster going on about what you're going to do to this guy. I'm going to do this. No, you're not. You're not, because you're just talking. You're just talking about it. It's masturbation. You're trying to make yourself feel better. And this coping strategy actually feeds the cycle. It keeps us locked. There's a couple more points to this that I wanted to add. So set your target to self-absolution rather than forgiveness of the other. You're going to absolve yourself. You're going to cut off the need to do anything about this. And there's a couple of questions that I would have you ask. I would ask, if you're really struggling to let go, what's the advantage to you in holding on to this? What's the disadvantage to you if you actually absolve yourself of holding this anymore? So if there's an advantage to you holding on to it, can you give up that advantage? Can you find another way of having that advantage that doesn't involve replaying the past over and over and over again? Is there a disadvantage to you moving on? What's the disadvantage? Does it force you to drop a victimhood narrative that actually has been doing okay for you for a while and has been keeping you fed or having the rent paid, or that justifies what is basically a shitty way of life? Do you need to give your victimhood narrative up and grow up? Only everybody watching this will have their own thing and their own, but you can't. Don't sit there thinking some daddy like me is going to give you a pill that makes it all okay, because they're not. And it's a really, really good way of marketing to people. Just buy the next course, just another $50, just another $500, just another $5,000, and then you'll be okay. That's how Scientology works. But it's you with you at the end of the day. You're on your own. Nobody's coming to save you. I can offer you tools that will help. Nobody did this for me. Nobody did this for me. I did this for me because I want to live. I want to thrive. I don't want to be fractured and whipped and wretched like some horrid little golem struggling, possessed with other people's perversion and evil. I just cast it out. I self-exorcised all the demons. I was like, no, I don't want to live like that anymore. And it feels pretty fucking good. I highly recommend it. The other thing is, where is courage here? Is there a courage issue? Do I just need to be more courageous in dealing with what's going on? It's a good question to ask, guys, whatever the issue is. Where's my courage? Am I being courageous in facing these things? And be compassionate too. I'm not being courageous in facing this. Why not? Because it frightens me. Okay? You can be frightened. You can be frightened. Also, it makes me feel hurt. Okay, you can be hurt. Also, it makes me feel ashamed. Okay, you can be ashamed. What's that called where we say, I'm frightened, I'm hurt and ashamed, and then you repeat back to yourself, it's okay to be frightened, hurt and ashamed. That's the fucking emotional literacy exercise. You show up for you. You show up for you, you validate your feelings, and you say, it's okay for me to feel this way. But if I don't take action because I feel this way, I'm going to keep going through the same trap, masturbatory cycle again and again and again. And I'll never grow up. I'll never move forward. And in 10 years' time, I'll be dealing with the same issues as today. That's the tragedy. That it happened sucks. That it happened, if it happened to you in childhood, it's catastrophic. It's enormously sad. It's enormously unfair. But you want somebody to pat you on the bum and give you a cuddle, you probably should see somebody else. I'm not that guy. I didn't just sit there patting myself on the bum and giving myself cuddles. I expected, no, I demanded more from myself. I was like, get the fuck up. Get the fuck up. It's not just about you. Oh, it sucks. I'm depressed and I hate myself. Wow. So no other human being before you ever had shitty experiences. No other human being before you ever went through what you've been through. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it hurts me. Okay, well, it fucking hurts you. But do you think it might be a nice idea if you got out of your pit, if you got out of your cave, if you dug your way out of this fucking hole to go and help other people who are living in torture right now? Because you can. That's how I spoke to myself. And I was like, yeah. This was the whole experience for me of being in Malaysia, of being in Kuala Lumpur, and of having the experience with the Sufis. It was to dig me out of a hole and to have a mission that was about more than me. I have a responsibility. If I'm sat with food and there's fucking 20 people around me starving, I don't know who you are or what your fucking belief system is, but I believe I have a responsibility to feed those people because I can. And it's nothing to do with Buddhism or Christianity or morality. It's just, if you don't get that, please stop watching my videos. I can't talk to you. And I'm not here for everybody. I'm really not. There's going to be a very small number of people who get what the fuck I'm trying to say. There's no cosmetic way around this, folks. There's no way out but through. You're at where you're at. Reality is reality. Your fantasies are your fantasies. I'm not saying don't have them, but Jesus. Reality is reality. What do you want? How do you want to live? It fucking sucks. I know it fucking sucks. But you can either lie there and die slowly, or you can get up and do something about it. And what I expect of you is to get the fuck up and do something about it. Fight back. Fight back. Fight back through thriving. Fight back through doing better. Fight back through expecting more. Fight back through being courageous and acting with discipline over time. Don't just demand to be given things. Don't just demand to be given like a pill that's going to make everything okay. Take reality, bend it to your fucking will, and make it better. You have to make it happen. If you don't, nothing, I guarantee you, is ever going to change. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. I hope that you found that useful, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Cheers.